My chat got me sucking into fucking Rocket Labs, bro. So I need to know what the hell did I buy? What did I buy?
Yeah, no, yeah, we could talk a little bit about. I know Vitale reached out to me, and Vince the Bull reached out to me as well. But welcome back, everybody, to Cashflow Chronicles. Glad that we have Hot Chris, the Daisy God, back with us to school us a little bit today. But we have a little bit of a treat. TJ, I wasn't expecting you, but I'm happy you're here. So that's not to say that I didn't want you here. So Chris kind of surprised me. I'm really excited that you're here and pick your brain on a lot of things. I think this might be our first or second live together, but either way, glad that you're here. But Chris had some thoughts about a company that he wanted to cover, and then I don't know, tomorrow is a big day. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are before we maybe dive into the details. Maybe you care, maybe you don't, maybe it's too short term. But I know, TJ, you're kind of a trader, right? I mean, you focus on the day to day almost and write your puts on a day to day basis. So, what do you guys think they're going to do tomorrow?
Yeah, so I sell puts, I sell calls for a living, so I definitely have to follow the macros pretty closely. I think it's all baked in as far as that it's going to be a pause, right? It's about a 97 or 99% chance. Last time I checked on whatever that website is, I forgot because it's all on my computer. I just clicked the little deal. What's not baked in is what he's going to say. That's the unknown, and the market tends to overreact to everything these days. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I got a lot of cash on the sidelines, and I'm kind of hoping for a little bit of a downturn because there's some stocks that I feel underweight on, specifically Palantir and Tesla. And I'm just hoping they just give me a little bit of a chance to just feel like I'm not gonna miss out, because whenever you have a stock that you really believe in, guys, like and it's not so much like Palantir, like I'm not as bullish as you guys because I don't understand it enough, but I have quite a bit of exposure in the $7, $8, $9 range. But I don't have enough exposure, so I'm just pissed off about it. So I'm just kind of waiting for another entry point. And then Tesla, I feel like we never have enough Tesla shares. If you're a Tesla bull, you just feel like you're always underweight Tesla.
I mean, Matt's the Palantir guy. I'm more of a, all around different shit kind of like these days. I used to be a lot more Palantir, but dude, I'm all about the growth numbers. Okay. If the numbers don't necessarily match my targets, then I'll typically take a step back. Dude, there's a Discord that I get so much hate. Like they actually meme about me, like, oh, fucking Chris, blah blah blah. So it's funny.
Don't they call you Darth Chris or something?
Yeah, after that stunt that I pulled with Palantir, everyone's like, oh, Darth Chris. What's okay, whatever. Yeah.
Well, man, I'm glad to be here. Thank you guys for having me on, and lead the way, Matt. It's your show, my man. I just want to tell you that I am a fan.
Oh, thanks, brother.
I know you're a lot more conservative than I am, but that's okay, man. We all have our place in the market, and you got to do you. I do me, you got to do you. And Chris, I don't know what he does. He's like a fucking alien with his investment.
Yeah,
you know what surprises me, to be honest? Both of you guys have backgrounds in oil and natural gas, yet your portfolio doesn't have that many oil and natural gas plays. I mean, I know you do, Matt, of course, but TJ, you don't have any. What's going on with that? Like, why not have any energy positions?
Man, dude, I wish I knew. So I worked for a company called Neighbors Drilling for 7 years. I was a derrick man. So I climbed up 90 feet, pulled pipe out of the ground, put it in the ground, managed the mud pumps, managed the oil-based mud, because whenever you're drilling holes, you got to keep the weight at a certain level to keep the gas from coming up and blowing up the fucking formation, right? So it's a lot of responsibility, and I believe that oil isn't going to zero. I know that's Matt's thing. I don't think oil is going to zero in our lifetime.
Not yet.
So I'm bullish on a lot of oil plays. Early on, I was wheeling a company called Rig, Transocean, the whole Deepwater Horizon. I was wheeling that deal for a while because I thought it was just totally undervalued. I made a lot of money with Big Red in the oil field. They're called Halliburton. We call them Big Red. Made a lot of money with them. My brother worked several years for a company called Schlumberger. It's a German outfit. And I've made money with Schlumberger as well. But I just don't have any exposure to them right now. The one that I have been eyeballing here closely, I got to play from another channel, a little shout out to a gentleman called Wealth Snowball, and he wheels Valero. And I'm very, very familiar with Valero, and that's one that I'm very interested in picking up just for a little more stability. And these oil field companies are making money hand over fist, guys.
Yeah, they're pretty well capitalized these days. But Chris, before we dive deeper into that, I wanted to hear what your thoughts are about the FOMC tomorrow. Do you think it's baked in? Do you think they're going to raise? Do you think they're going to pause?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much baked in. There's really not much. There's not much left in terms of them raising. I mean, even the CPI boosts that we're seeing lately are primarily driven by one, shelter, which is being held up by inventory issues because not a lot of people are going to list their homes with the current rates the way they
Yeah,
are,
right.
especially if you have a mortgage that was you got it at such a low rate. So I think there's a lot of people on the sidelines waiting for homes at a at a price, and right now a lot of people are priced out. So that's one thing, and the other thing, of course, is oil, which has been on a tear of just going higher and higher, mainly because the Saudis and the Rush. So this is the issue that the U.S. puts itself in, which is they've limited supplies from Iran, they've limited supplies from Venezuela, now Russia. So like you have all these oil producers, and so now you're giving the Saudis enough of a leeway to actually, make their cuts meaningful. So right
Mhm.
now, that's what we're seeing right now with the Saudis with their pause on increased production. The U.S. production has just been on a tear. I don't know if you guys saw that. Like it's pumps have just been rolling right. I mean, and the other thing is like for us, the time to get a drilling rig up is like shrunk dramatically, and a lot of the inventory out there for like old wells, I mean not old wells but basically like proven wells, like these guys can just tap them very quickly and get oil running rolling through. So right now the US oil production I think is like really, it's like back to pre-COVID, and it actually might
Yep.
start exceeding COVID levels. So it's always interesting to see. And normally normally I'm always like in awe of the oil sector because like oil and natural gas sector has a way, it's like a fucking weed, man. It just won't die. Like they just keep adjusting for the new lows, like, oh, oil is at $80-$90 a barrel, fine, we'll make money. And then oil goes down to 50-60, yeah, sure, you'll have some bankruptcies, but motherfuckers will figure out how to make a profit on $30 oil or
Right.
$40 oil. So right now I'm seeing a couple of plays where a lot of inventory was built up in 2014, 15, and 16, in terms of like well sites that now this one company actually has access to in the Bakken. And basically they're, like I said, they're in terms of cash flow, they're going to be cash flow monsters going forward. And so they were just spun off from Jeffries, like literally maybe a year ago, less than a year ago. And so they just came out. So I wanted to show you guys what you guys thought, because energy is one of those things that not a lot of investment has been happening over the last like 2-3 years, like, and not to mention with all the ESG stuff, there's been a lot more limited capital that's going in there. So in order for a healthy market, you need to have capital going into the sector, which means that new oil and everything is coming up. As far as I can tell, for the next 5-10 years, oil is not going anywhere. Like we need oil to survive. Like it's just part of the economy. That's how it is. Everyone still has gas cars. EVs have not taken the market share to the point where, we can let oil go. So oil right now being that $90 a barrel, depending on what the break even is when you got your property, when you got your wells, they could be making a shit ton of money. Now, this company does have an issue a little bit because what they did was they hedged a lot of their production for next year, but they did it at like 75, $80 a barrel, which still makes them profitable. So, it's not like they're not profitable, but those hedges are going to fucking hurt their bottom line for the next at least like 6 to 9 months. And then after that, they'll be able to get forward contracts at much higher rates. So, we could take a look. We could take a look.
So yeah, I did want to grab. I was trying to pull it up in a meaningful time. What Chris was kind of talking about with respect to oil not dying, and so this is kind of what he's referring to. You kind of had that COVID dip, right? And you also have the two kind of graphics on here. One is production, which is in blue, and demand, which is in brown. And you all have kind of known how vastly the oil price has changed. So what kind of Chris is talking about is, when oil prices were kind of drowning themselves in 2020, still somehow people were able to get their footing and be able to lower their cost basis and their dollar per barrel lift costs and everything like that to be able to make it worthwhile. But you could see, really it dropped off pretty quick with everyone cutting production, and also in the US, I think dropping from, I think it was like 12 and a half or 13 million barrels a day to like 8.5 or 9. So they dropped 3 million barrels a day alone in the United States, and the rest of the world did roughly the same. One, because people couldn't get in there. Two, supply chain issues. And then three, people were just not drilling wells because of the fact that demand was kind of drying up. And then obviously now we're kind of on this catch up period here, but you can see it's still growing, like Chris is kind of talking about. And I think it's going to forecast to grow another 1.5 to 2% a year for the foreseeable future. So with that, I'm with you, Chris. I don't think that oil is going away until the early 2030s. And by going away, I mean going on to its decline. That's a good way to kind of to kick it off there.
Are y'all aware of why oil is so efficient to drill? Because you were talking about how these rigs can spud in and keep turning to the right and churning out oil. Do y'all know why that happens? Did you ever work on a rig? Because I know you have an oil field background, but you're real, like, you're kind of like, you don't tell people what exactly you do, Matt. Like,
I'm a reservoir engineer, but are you referring to the fracturing? Or are you talking about the horizontal drilling?
So what happens is rigs about 15 years ago, they started putting them on skids, guys. So instead of drilling one hole at a time, it'd take about a month to drill a hole. Now it only takes about 4 to 10 days, depending on how steep your lateral is. And like if you're in the Eagle Ford Shale where I drilled, it takes about, it's like the pay dirt, right? So there's like different shells in the earth, and you ultimately have to get to the Eagle Ford Shale, which is about 7,000 to 10,000 feet on average into the ground. And you're able to drill like 5 or 6 wells, depending on how big your pad is in one well site. And you can drill this hole, cement it up, run the casing, go to another one and another one, and you're in a pad for like a month and a half, and you've drilled 6 wells. 5 or 6 wells as opposed to just one at a time. So now you can, and because of lateral drilling, you're able to go to like a huge landmass, but only have your rig in one spot versus moving it all the way around. So we can, whenever we get turned into the right in this country, and we mean business guys, it's legit. And all these landmans go and procure a bunch of contracts for years and years and years, but they're under pressure because you got to drill within a certain time, and not you lose that lease. And they want to give Biden a bunch of crap. I'm not Democrat or Republican. I don't play that game. I want to make money. I don't care who the president is. That's irrelevant to me. Yeah. But there's a lot of companies sitting on a lot of leases, and they haven't spudded into the ground yet. And they could potentially lose those leases, and that could change the landscape tremendously for some of these oil outfits, guys.
Yeah, and to add a little bit more color to what TJ is kind of talking about, horizontals have been around for a long time, but what he's kind of referring to is instead of just drilling vertically, horizontal means you're just turning the drill bit sideways. And sometimes those things can go, depending on the lease position, 10,000, 15,000 feet. So 2-3 miles. There's been some horizontal wells that have been drilled up to 5 miles long and stuff of the like. But some of these Permian wells and stuff of the like, they get up to 10,000 feet, extra long laterals. And you have to think there's a lot of efficiencies associated with that, right? Less and also less carbon footprint as well, which is hugely immensely popular discussion these days. And then also, the total amount of access to the reservoir that you're getting per, I guess, dollar of cost is fractionalized as well, which helps lower the total cost of development for each individual barrel that you're accessing. So that's part of the ingenuity that Chris is kind of referring to, as to the, you see things kind of decrease in price, and you see these people start to lose money, but magically they're like cockroaches after a nuclear winter, like they still are able to survive. But anyway, just some initial food for thoughts.
Yeah, the company that I'm talking about, and you guys can do some research on your own time a little bit, but let me just show you guys. It's called VTS. Basically Vitesse, I think that's how I said Vitesse, whatever. But this is the company itself. One of the things is most of their Their presence is here in the Bakken, and they were a spinoff from Jeffries. They had invested a total of $450 million to attack in 2014 and 2018, almost $450 million to acquire attractively priced acquisitions of underdeveloped inventory in the Bakken. And then after that, to date, they have a whole bunch of drilling that's been done. They've got a lot of proven sites. They pay a pretty good dividend, and they have pretty strong free cash flows, which they're using to buy back shares. One of the things that sucks about it is like right now is they do have some hedges in place, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that. That probably is going to be negative for them, but once again, they can always drill more. But this is what I like about them, which is their capital allocation strategy. And like I said, this is only a 500, I think right now, based on the current share price, only a $500 million company with assets that are way excess of that and like barely any debt. I think they only have like 140 million in debt. So with oil prices, the place, where they are and the production that they can ramp up, they could probably end up, generating a shit ton of cash flow and then use that cash flow to do what's in their business plan, which is to buy back shares. So they're literally just, a roll. They're kind of like a roll up where they'll buy assets from people that are undermanaged, misunderstood asset and not really marketed, and then they'll end up, doing the drilling and then accrete it to dividend, which is oil weighted, and then yeah. It's Berkshire owned a good portion of it through their Jeffries position, but they basically unloaded that last month. What was interesting though was that insiders were kind of loading this up. Let me just VTS all throughout the last couple of months right here. So you can see here, even in September, the chief financial officer and even the CEO have been buying up shares. So the question to me is like, why? And then when I looked at like the numbers, which is probably the most compelling argument, just to show you guys right here, quarterly numbers. Let me just go to it. Sorry. Right here, in terms of operating income, they're generating a good amount of operating income, almost like half of their market cap in operating income on an annualized basis. So they had some operating income like losses here and there. Last year, of course, when oil and natural gas were at like all-time high, they were making fucking ton of money. They made almost $153 million in one quarter of operating income. With oil prices recovered to almost $90 a barrel right now, my question is, why the hell are they still trading at such a low valuation? And maybe this is where I'm hoping that you guys can help me with some of this DD and help figure that out. Like, how does this work? Oil prices have climbed to almost $90, and everyone is focused on the super majors, which are recovering slowly. But these guys are, like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what do I not see? So let's just look at this on a quarterly basis. 1 second, TTM on quarterly. So last June, the month that ended June, remember, oil was trading at around $60, $70 a barrel. Now it's almost like $90 a barrel, and they were still able to generate like revenue like this, which is kind of crazy, right? So my question is, at this point, what the hell is going on here? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I was a derrick man, but I have several family members that work as company men where they're in charge of the entire pad. And a lot of times like outfits have agreements to sell their barrels for certain amounts of money for certain periods of time. So I don't know if they're stuck in like a bad contract, if you will. Like you said, they have hedges. That's just kind of like a cover call gone bad, right? Like they made an agreement to sell at a certain price, kind of like me with my SoFi shares at $10 for January 2025. And if I can't figure out a way how to finagle my way out of that contract, I'm going to leave a lot of money on the table.
So Matt pulled up the exact thing that I would have shown, and Matt got it right. Like, Matt, you're showing this, right? Yep. So there you go. Go ahead, Matt. Explain.
Well, I'm not good at explaining it. You're probably way better. But immediately, what you can kind of see is that there's no 90s. If you look all the way on the right hand side, there's no $90 I guess, swaps or collars or hedges or anything like that. It's all in the 70s and 80s. And so Chris is probably much better to kind of take it away from there. But that's my initial look for that particular piece.
So this is the problem that they have in the short term. Basically, just like TJ explained, they're in a bad position because they took a lot of their production, and in order to hedge against downside, what they did was they sold swaps on their barrels. So basically, right now, they can anything that they produce, these are the prices that they're gonna get, regardless of oil prices 150 to 200 $200. It doesn't matter. These are the swaps that they're gonna be responsible for, which means that it's pretty much bad for them, you know.
So good if you're in a very volatile environment, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of companies, specifically companies of this size and the, probably up to 20, 30, and sometimes even larger range, will write these sorts of contracts to guarantee that they have enough capital coming through, or I guess cash influx to come through, to make sure that they're not overspending on capex or anything of the like. So they just want to make sure that if for some reason there's a flash crash to $30, that they have that sort of coverage, and they're getting paid $70, $75 a barrel to make sure that they can continue to develop the land in which they have. Kind of going back to what TJ was talking about, which is, you have a set amount of time, 4 or 5 years sometimes, to be able to develop this land. Sometimes it's a little bit longer in the Gulf of Mexico, where timelines get a little bit extended because you're in deep water. But you go up to a landowner and say, we'll give you 5 years to have the opportunity to explore your land, and unless you're producing something, you have to give that land back to them. So you're kind of screwed in that case. So you're kind of stuck between this rock and a hard place, of one, trying to make sure that you don't lose money if the price goes negative, or I guess below sort of what your lifting costs and your chemical costs and operating expenditure costs are, and making sure that you don't limit yourself too much to the upside. And it looks like that these guys thought that oil is going to be much lower for a lot longer. You can kind of see things out here until the November 2024 range, but it's not too much. It's only 500,000 barrels. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind that these guys are a small producer, right? I think that they make, on their presentation, they said 10,000 barrels a day. So 500,000 barrels to them is a year or a year and a half's worth of production. And so in that particular case, it's a little bit tougher. So it's like they almost sold all their production for a year out, if you kind of think about it in that perspective.
The question is, for me, is like, what kind of profitability does this mean for them? Because I mean, when they sold at 77, 72, 79, and 81, they didn't exactly, like do it with losses in mind. They probably had some level of operating cash flow that they projected out. So I wonder what their break-even costs are, because I think that's the key here, right? Like if their break-even costs are like, I don't know, in the 20s, 30s, something like that, then then that could be something.
But these are the sorts of things, Chris, that show up on the mark-to-market accounting net income issues, right? So what people might be initially seeing is these guys might still be getting the 75 or 80 bucks a barrel coming through, but because we're at 90 bucks a barrel, technically they're at a loss, because they could be selling it at $10 more per barrel. And so that's the sort of stuff that shows up on the net income statement, and actually shows up as a negative on them, but in reality they're still printing money. And so it's kind of interesting, and that goes back to the whole, you want to look at kind of the cash flow in and cash flow statements of some of these organizations, rather than just like the operating income or net income statements, because cash flow is what actual cash is coming in and going out. And sometimes you have these general accountable, the GAAP, general allowed accounting practices, sort of things that come in and really skew the view, because some of it's non-cash and some of it ends up being cash.
Yeah. I'm, like I said, I'm still doing more DD on these guys. I might take a speculative position just to basically hedge against, because right now I've been burned by fucking energy so many times. Yet I'm like a degenerate gambler. Like, fucking love energy. Like it's just you cannot resist the amount of money that's being made by these guys. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like right here, if you look at their net income, of course it's negative, but just like Matt said, once you take in all the other parts of it, you can actually see that they're generating pretty good amount of cash flow. So as an example, the depreciation is like 37 million, which for like which for basically one of the problems with not problems but one of the ways that oil drilling here in the US works is that you have this huge spike of production, but then it tapers off and it goes down precipitously, which means that unlike other wells like back in the day where you would pump that same well for like years and years and years, your traditional wells with fracturing wells, you go to a well, you fracture it, there's a huge spike in production, but then it drops off precipitously. So you have to keep drilling new wells in order to maintain that production. But that also means that you can actually account for a lot of the cost for that, so you can get a lot of depreciation for that.
Yeah, it's called depletion cost. So very much like if you were to put capital into a rental property or put capital into, any sort of farm equipment or anything like that, you're allowed to write it off for the amount of proved reserves you have, right? So if you have let's just say $1 million worth invested into this thing and you're going to make 1 million barrels, so you could write off $1 per barrel. So it doesn't mean that you're going to basically have no income, but what it does mean is that you're going to be able to at least offset your taxes by just that $1 per barrel. So if you make $10 a day or 10 barrels a day, you're going to be able to write off $10 worth. And so if your tax rate is effectively 30%, you're going to be able to save $3. So it's the same sort of incentive that you get for investing in farm equipment and real estate in that respect.
Yeah.
You were talking about what makes them profitable earlier, Chris. The rule of thumb that I've always heard in the oil field is oil outfits, specifically operators, because they hire contractors. Like Neighbor's a contractor, ConocoPhillips or Exxon or EOG. Those are operators, right? They're the ones that control the land. They hire us as the contract labor, if you will, to drill the wells, right? But the rule of thumb that I always heard in my time in the oil field, and my family has been in the oil field 20, 30 years, is between 50 and 60 barrels. They're good. They're good at these prices. They're not just making money; they're making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
But a company like this that has basically said, "Hey, we want to stay in business, so we're willing to agree on the front end to sell these shares." It's a covered call. They essentially got caught when they're handing the cookie jar on a covered call, and it's kind of not against them, but it could be a lot worse, because if it could be better if oil was at $50 a barrel right now, they'd be sitting really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have to hedge, because before you can consider trying to make a bunch of money in any business, you got to make sure that you can stay in business first to do so.
Yep.
So Chris, I know you had other questions that you kind of wanted to I know that you're somebody that likes to speculate in the oil and gas space, but is there anything else that you're kind of sitting there being like, I don't understand X or I don't understand Y, and I might not be able to help, right? Or TJ might not be able to help, but he's got more of the operations experience than I do. But I come from more of the planning side, where we're planning developments and stuff of the like. And so just wasn't sure if you had any.
No, that was about it. That's the only one that I'm like thinking about right now. There's another one called Console Energy, but that's primarily metallurgical coal. I know, like Chris, today is just Chris going after all the fuck ESG day, right? That's pretty much what this is. But basically, Console Energy, I'm doing some DD on that. Someone brought it to my attention, so I was looking at it, and it's wow, yeah, they have some long-term fixed contracts for metallurgical coal that are worth looking into, with a PE of I think in the single digits right now. A lot of cash flow that's coming in. So my thing is, and they've been on a epic run. So if you want to, I think it's CXIE. Console Energy. It's CEIX. Sorry.
And I have another one, Coterra, as well, that I have a buddy who works for them. But here's CEIX. This is the last 5 years. Here's the year to date, up 54%. Here's the last year. This is 4.65% price to earnings, $3 billion company. I actually interviewed for these guys for an internship about 12 years ago.
Really? Interesting.
They did not offer me a job. Now I work at undisclosed oil company, so nobody will ever know who I work for. So,
but they own coal in the Appalachian region, and so I think a lot of people think coal is dead, like no one uses coal anymore. And like if you look at the US, 40% of our energy still comes from coal, and metallurgical coal is still highly, highly hard. It's like it's not something that you could just replace tomorrow. You know, it's going to take a really long time for alternative sources of energy to come in. And so these guys are just so undervalued based on its production. So we definitely have to do more DD on that one too.
Yeah, but I think this goes back to talking about DD specifically because certain companies, just because it has energy by its name, it doesn't necessarily mean, that it's one thing or another, right? So TJ mentioned Valero earlier. Valero is very much a downstream player, and by downstream I mean that they are mostly the ones that are refining products into the end products that the consumers would use, right? You don't necessarily go to the gas station and utilize crude oil that's basically coming out of the ground, right? It has to go to somebody like a Valero where they actually create the products in which we're kind of using and the transportation pieces.
So let's give a little context to Valero. Valero is actually a Venezuelan company. Back in the day, Venezuela owned majority of technically this was a Venezuelan company. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going back 6 years of memory right now. So Valero is the U.S. subsidiary of the Venezuelan company. And what happens is they own a shit ton of refineries here in the U.S., but a lot of their refining capacity was primarily for high sulfur and what is that thing called? High sulfur and
sour H2S.
Sour, sour oil coming from Venezuela. And all the refineries are here in the U.S. So basically, we were using a lot of Venezuelan oil until, of course, Hugo Chavez that took over, and then Maduro took over, and then then we had some problems with them. But in terms of proven reserves, Venezuela has the most proven reserves in the entire planet. Like there's just oil everywhere over there. But yeah, because of political issues, so then the U.S. ended up seizing Valero, right? Like as a sanctioned. As a sanctioned item. I don't know what happened to them after that.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the one I have the most of is Shell.
Shell?
Yeah. I've been buying them a good bit. Every time I get paid UDOC shares, I sell some of it and buy Shell.
Nice.
And they made about $50 or $60 billion, I think, in cash flow from operations last year. To put it in perspective, and their market cap is $216 billion. So technically, instead of being able to put forth and continue to drill wells, if they wanted to, instead of share buybacks, dividends, they could have bought back a quarter of their stock on the market. That's the kind of cash flow that some of these companies are really churning out. So it's pretty interesting when you kind of see the price to cash flow from operations that these companies get valued at versus say like a Google or an Apple, right? And it just goes back to showing you can't just say or evaluate any company on one particular metric and apply it across blanketly the entirety of the stock market, right? You kind of have to understand and compare different companies and what's important or pertinent to them, just like you wouldn't measure monthly active users for Shell. Right. So it doesn't make sense in that particular case. Now they're starting to look at that for like EV and from like the gas station perspective and convenience store perspective. But that's a different story for a different day. So,
yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. And that was the two things that I wanted to talk about with oil. And then the other reason why, and I'm glad that we have TJ here, because this is the thing that I really wanted to talk to TJ about, which was I have taken a position in Eli Lilly. Okay. Eli Lilly has had this one drug that just came out recently, about a year and a half ago, called Manjaro. All right, Manjaro is specifically built to help diabetics manage their A1Cs, and basically, especially if you have issues around weight, you take Manjaro. It helps control the appetite. It also works on your digestive system by slowing down the food like going through your system. So essentially, you just feel less hungry. Now, one of the things about Manjaro that's been super interesting is that it's very, very effective. Like it's probably one of the most effective things at weight loss. And TJ, of course, I mean, maybe TJ, you can explain to us like a little bit more about it.
About Manjaro,
Yeah.
my journey with Manjaro, guys. So June
Yeah.
2022 in Pebble Beach, our fiance at the time and I were scouting out our location to get married. We took some photos on the 18th lawn, and she looked just absolutely gorgeous as she always does. And I looked like me, except 50 pounds more of me. And I was like, I can't do anything about this face. God didn't give me any of that. So I got to do something about this waist. This just does not look good. It does not look good. And I didn't feel good. So I just had a checkup from the neck up, guys. So I started doing like a whole Rocky thing, doing a bunch of calisthenics, a bunch of working out. Got back from Pebble Beach, lost like 10 pounds in a week and a half, just doing it the old fashioned way, right? Because I used to be a personal trainer back in a different life. So I know what to do. The thing is, I just wasn't motivated to do it. I just wanted to go make a shitload of money and then I'll get healthy later. But then I was like, when I was doing this checkup from the neck up in the hotel at a Pebble Beach, specifically at some resort called Spanish Bay, I was just like, man, I got to get my shit together because health is your number one wealth. Forget all the money in the world. If they say I'll give you $1 billion today, but you got to die tomorrow, would you take it? Of course, the answer is absolutely not, right? Because your health is way more important than that. So I got introduced to Manjaro through Shanna. She's my buddy Roland's wife at the time. She was like, "Hey, my clinic, my sister has a clinic. They can get you this product. Go ahead and take it." So I took it, man, and dude, it's just you stop eating. You're just not hungry, And then I had so much fat in my body that my body was literally just eating itself. And I was just eating water and then just like really forcing myself to eat every other day, just something just psychologically because I felt like I needed to eat. But then I thought of all these figures that have fasted like 40 days at a time and all this stuff. I was like, surely I'm not going to die for not eating for a couple of days. And guys, I was 260 pounds when I started this journey. And I went to the dermatologist today and they weighed me and I weighed 215 pounds. And now I'm on a mission to get to 185 pounds because I'm only 5'8". I claim I'm really more like 5'7.5". So I want to be at 185 because I got quite a bit of muscle on my body. But ultimately, I really got to try to figure out how to get to like 175, maybe 170, just to be height weight proportionate. Because man, there's a little bit of side effects though with the product. Sometimes I feel a little bit lightheaded because I think that when it's doing, and I can't really speak on the medical stuff. I know that Chris has a medical background, so he could help me out if I trip out, please. If I trip up a little bit, because I don't want to misinform anyone. But I think essentially what it's doing is it's taking the sugar out of your blood. And if it does so excessively, it could produce something called hypoglycemic. And it's like an issue to where you just feel very lightheaded because you need a little bit like of a jolt of a sugar to get you going. So I've experienced that a little bit. So I always have like juices and stuff available so that I can drink to get my sugar levels up because I feel like I'm about to pass out sometimes. So I have to be very careful with that. So that's like the one side effect. And the other one is just occasionally it gives you a little bit of nausea. Like if you want to go eat something sweet or something fried, your body's just going to absolutely reject it, dude. And there's going to be hell to pay. So it really forces you to kind of change your lifestyle. And it's the best thing that has happened to me, man. Because yes, there are a couple of side effects that I've dealt with, but being obese, overweight, fat, whatever term you want to use, there's negative side effects to that too. Heart disease is a real thing, high cholesterol, blood pressure, all of those things. Those are real things as well. And to me, it was like I just had to pick which one I would rather deal with, and I wanted to get more fit and then eventually get off of the drug altogether and then just maintain a healthy lifestyle and kind of go from there. But you can correct me on anything I might have misstated, Chris, because I don't have a medical background like you, my man. But I'm just,
no, you nailed it. No, you nailed it on the head. My wife is the one that could probably explain this the best. She is a clinical pharmacist, but this is the mechanism of action for Manjaro. Let me just show you guys real quick right here. So it directly reduces appetite and increases metabolism by action in the brain because it is a hormone that you take. Well, I think it's a peptide actually. It's not a hormone. Like I said, I'll ask my wife. I'm not 100% sure. It reduces the glucagon secretion, which is a hormone induced increasing hunger. And basically it's one of those things that's super helpful in helping lose weight. And if you can see here, this is the different strengths of Manjaro that people usually take. A lot of people have lost. This is the mean change, almost 25% of their total body weight. So if you look at
I thought
the
that said
amount,
pounds. Either way.
no, I don't think it's pounds. It's percentage right here. Oh, hold on. Mean change in weight in pounds. Okay, you're right. I think it's in but that's so weird. It says percent weight loss. So maybe like 200-pound people are taking, I don't know. Because this says 23. Mean baseline weight. Okay, so that's why. The mean baseline weight of the people that were taking this would be 206. So if you weigh 206 and then you lost the weight, you'd lose about 25 pounds.
Maybe
I
it's
think
22% of your body fat or something like that. I don't know.
yeah. I'm not sure. I have to look that up again. But basically, it helps you lose weight. And a lot of times, what it is because you don't have an appetite, your body metabolizes the fat that's already on board, right? So if you look at the amount of weight loss in 40 weeks, if you could lose 25 pounds, that's like literally losing about 75, like 0.75 pounds per week, which is actually pretty good if you think about it, and especially for someone who might be in a category of obesity, the health benefits could be tremendous. The reason why I'm so bullish on this because the total addressable market for this medication is like
It's huge.
amazing. It's huge. It's huge. Like while I was on the cruise, I was actually joking with my wife. I was like, let's count the number of people that could probably use Manjaro. And it was literally, I was just like Manjaro. And same thing with Ozempic. Like Ozempic is a competitor. It doesn't work the same way. Manjaro has more effectiveness than Ozempic does, but essentially the amount of sales is just crazy with this drug. So they're projecting right now on a conservative basis almost $50 billion in sales. It costs about $500 a month. Well, actually, it costs $1,000 a month. But if you have insurance, some of it will, go through the insurance process. The other thing with it, though, is that it's not approved for weight loss just yet.
Right.
Once it gets approved for weight loss, that means that now insurers can actually cover it fully, and that will just skyrocket sales way beyond what they are right now. So right now it's not covered for that, but once the coverage for that comes on, and the patent for this doesn't run out till 2031. So I'd take a look, man. It's definitely worth looking at. Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk have both been on a tear in terms of cash flow and growing their growing cash flow from Manjaro and with Novo Nordisk with their Ozempic and Wegovy products. So
So the one
worth
thing
taking a look.
that made it economical, though, because you were saying that it's $500 a month, right, depending on your situation, and that's what I'm
Mhm.
paying for it currently. But before,
Yeah.
guys, for the first 6 months, there was a coupon, and I was actually able to get it for $25 per month.
Yeah.
A lot of people got on board at $25 a month because at that point, the only thing you have to lose is weight. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you're going to go piss off $25 on your Dutch Bros coffee. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was a no-brainer for me because I was like, dude, $25. That's going
Yeah.
to Wendy's twice. Boom, $25. We have a thing called Whataburger here. I don't know if y'all know what Whataburger is. If you don't, you got to ask
Yeah.
somebody. Dude, I was going to Whataburger 3 or 4 times a week. That's probably $50. So it was just a
Yeah.
no-brainer for me, man, because you can lose money. The only side effect, the major side effect, is I had to buy about, where's that stupid horse right here? I had to buy about 50 of those again because I just all the other
You
ones
keep
were big.
yeah.
So that set me back a little bit right there. But
Yeah.
man, definitely recommend it, man. Get on it, and then obviously back to the stock. It was that you're talking about Eli Lilly is the one that's producing Manjaro. they're gonna print money, and Eli Lilly's already printing money. This is just gravy on top of the gravy, right? Eli Lilly is as solid as they come.
Yep. Yep.
What
Do you have any
about
thoughts
you,
on this,
Matt?
Matt?
I know you told me about your situation, Chris, but what's going on with you, Matt? Have you considered it for your life and your lifestyle, or where are you
I
at?
have. I mean, I've seen a lot of people at work that have talked about it. Not anybody like in my direct communication that like I've seen that's dropped massive amounts of weight, but I've heard people around the office talking about it, basically like the miracle drug and this and that. And some other gentleman stopped by because some people are remote, and then we also have operations, right? So some of these people are out in the field.
Right.
So one of these field guys came into the office, and people were like, "Oh my god, like he's literally half the size as he was." And they're like, what are you on? And they were like, I think he said Ozempic. And so he was like, it literally just doesn't make you want to eat whatsoever. And so I've considered it. I think the only thing that bothers me, if it was like a pill or something like that, I'd be on it. But I hate needles with a passion. And I know some people, like, it's not even that big of a needle at all.
Truthfully, you can't even feel it.
Yeah.
It's literally like, remember, did you do the COVID vaccine or no?
No.
So the COVID vaccine was like really, really small. I'm talking about the actual needle, the hardware that goes in your body. It's probably half the size of that.
Yeah.
It's just like really, really small, except the COVID vaccine.
The injector that you have, it's just like you just press the button, right? You just hold it to your stomach and you just press it.
You unlock it and you just squeeze it and you're done. It's a disposable, the one that I use. Now there's some that it's a little bit more complicated and you got to like torque it to whatever you want for that dosage. I didn't want any of that shit because I don't want to play nurse. I was like, if you're telling me I can pop the pin off, unlock, stab myself, I can't even feel it, throw it in the trash, sign me up for that deal. I want the easy better, right? That's how I roll. Dude, you will not even feel it. I absolutely promise you, man. And it would be a game changer for you, my man. It surely would, because I just feel so much more energetic down 45 pounds. I can't wait to see what I'm going to feel like and look like in 30 more pounds. And then I get to go shopping again. It's kind of fun, dude. My wife's got me into this shopping thing. It's actually, I used to dog her and rag her, bro, but until you get on it, you look forward to the new shit coming out.
This is going to sound fucked up. I mean, I'll tell you guys, I'm not like super heavy, but I'm heavy. I'm about 208 now. My healthy body weight is
height, right, Chris? You're as well.
My healthy body weight should be 165. Like if I get one below 165, that means that I'm an average person again, right? That based on my age and everything else. So this is gonna sound fucked up, but before our cruise, me and the wife, we went shopping and I tried on pants. Let me tell you, boy, that was like, it hurt. It fucking hurt because you can't find your size. And like, I'm like trying to jimmy this fucking thing on, like, so ever since then, I'm just like, bro, I need to do something about this. I literally like, that was the first time where I felt really like just really bad. So now I'm in a position where I'm like, no, I need to change my life around. I gotta do what I have to do to, to get to a point. So fuck it. I'll just say it. I'm taking a medication now to just, I'm taking semaglutide, which is Ozempic, to get the weight down as well. Because I know that if you don't get your weight down in your 30s and you let it, accumulate and stay that way, especially into your 40s and 50s, you open yourself up to so many diseases, like not just, it's really a bad value proposition, like long term. So right now I'm like, look, in terms of cash flow, yes, is it a little bit pricey? It is, but I figure if I'm not eating as much, I'm going to save money not going out. So it's the same thing. It's, but for me, I think it's more important that my health comes first and that I get on it, work out, develop those healthy habits, and then get off of it eventually, so that's the goal. Hopefully we get there.
Is that over the counter, or is that something that you had to go to like a secret doctor for?
No. There's no over the counter. There's no.
But I know, but some people go like to these weird off pharmacies.
There's a bunch of clinics, man, and they're making a ton of money. Like they're making a ton of money, and it's hard. Like I get mine filled at Walgreens, guys, And sometimes they're like, we don't have the 7.5, we'll get you the 10. Like, this shit is sold out, guys. Like, this shit is, it's like cotton candy at the circus, man. It is sold out at the carnival. It is hard to get. It's hard to get. So I was at the 2.5, then they switched me over to the 5. I never did the 7.5, and then now I'm on the 10. And on the 10, dude, I probably consume 5,000 to 6,000 calories a week right now. I'm just not hungry.
Yeah.
And I'm not forcing myself to eat. Like, I've accepted, like, dude, there's so much fat. This body can go to town on itself. I just got to keep drinking water. Water will keep you alive. You can go a long time without food. You can go a long time without food and have a little bit of electrolytes as well, because it can drain you out as well. But
and vitamins. I'd say like a 1-a-day vitamin would be good to add,
I recommend anybody get on it. Is there going to be some side effects? Yes, but the side effects of being extremely overweight, to me, those are way worse, like, in my opinion. And if you just tweak your lifestyle along the way and get off of it, I think you'll be good to go. And work out a little bit, though, because my arms went from 16-inch to now they're 15-inch. And I work out, but it's just, you're going to lose a little bit of mass. That's just the reality. But to me, that was
I have a badunkadunk. That's where most of my body weight is. My ass is like, pretty fat. So I have a badunkadunk, and my stomach is like I still remember the day where my stomach came over my belt, and I was like, no, what happened? But like I said, now I'm taking all the precautions to reverse that trend, and hopefully I'll get back to sexy Chris again, which is 165 and built like a tank.
Hey, you both are going to be in Vegas, correct?
Yeah.
Dude, looking forward to that. Yeah, we're staying at the Aria.
Yeah, nice. Me too. Yeah.
So
we couldn't convince Hot Chris to stay at the Aria. Something about he didn't want to be near me or something like that.
No, man, I'm not balling like you guys are, bro.
Airbnb, bro. Y'all are freaking circle jerking over the next episode.
Sir, it's like, come on, guys, what's going on?
They're taking junkies to a whole nother level over there. I don't know.
Y'all are just hating. Y'all are just jealous. Y'all are just jealous. That's what it is. All right. Y'all are just jealous. Oh, good times. Good times.
Yeah.
Here's a question: Would you guys invest in Eli Lilly? What do you think, TJ? Would you invest in Eli Lilly?
Dude, I haven't looked at the charts or anything. I know the fundamentals are impeccable, but I could definitely see me doing a cash carry put, not on my YouTube portfolio, because it's just not big enough for a position like that. Because I'm always wrong. Dude, if you want to look at the master of being wrong on the first bullet entry point, I'm your guy.
Yeah, me too, man.
I don't have enough for that, but I could definitely do it on the larger Robinhood for sure.
Yeah,
500 a share, almost 600 a share. One contract.
It's a 500. It's a almost $500 million, $500 billion pharma company. Hold on.
It's because, guys, when I look at something, I automatically look at 100 shares minimum. So it's tough, but I can. What does it look? Can you pull up the options chain? What does it look like at like 525? Like something super safe for my standards.
What do you do? Weeklies? I forget what you do.
No, I like 30 to 45 days when I'm first starting out, because I want to get paid to do research, because I don't know enough about anything with Eli Lilly right now. But
525, you're looking at 227, and that's at the 10-11 delta.
Yeah, so it'd have to be like at 550, because the juice isn't worth the squeeze there, because there's a company called Tesla that's going to pay me 3 times, 4 times that.
Yeah, I remember when Tesla was on its run in 2020, 2021.
Yeah,
it was like selling puts on Tesla was guaranteed money back then.
Yeah,
it was. But if it went the other way, I would have been scared.
Fucking Amit says Bedflow Chronicles.
Yeah, so Tesla, like right now, I got 5 open cash secured puts for 1013, I think, at 250.
Yeah.
And those
it's
easy.
That's the other thing. You guys are the ones that generate cash flow from selling options. But like I'm terrible at that. Like I don't know why. I just can't do it. Instead, my major success when it comes to options is doing primarily spreads, like doing buying a call and then selling a call against it at a higher strike. And I've done fucking amazing with that.
A debit spread specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's like relearning the stock market, right? Like you got to figure out what works for you and why you're doing it. Right. So like if you're trying to make a shit ton of money, you're not going to be out here writing covered calls. You know what I mean? Like that you're going to be, if you're out there trying to get a little bit of dividend and you're trying to just make 3% a year or something like that, and you're just trying to help supplement your say 2.5% yielding dividend on SCHD, you're just trying to get that extra 0.5% so you can lower your total, like, you know, because the way I look at it is say you have a portfolio that's $2 million and you're getting 2.5%, you're going to be making $50,000 a year. If you're able to squeak out another 0.5% or 1%, then here you are now making an extra $10,000, $20,000 a year. That's income that you can use on a day-to-day basis. But you're probably not going to be exploding your $2 million, right? Versus if you're looking at what you're doing, you're utilizing leverage and trying to help offset some of your risk via, you know, when you're doing the spreads, the total capital outlay, right? So you're trying to maximize how much total money you're getting in trying to maximize, like in trying to go 300-400% on whatever capital you invest. It's a very different strategy, right? I mean, options, you have to think, is some of it's for hedging, some of it's for income, some of it is for leverage. So you really just have to look at it from the same perspective as you do the stock market. What are my objectives? What am I trying? What am my time horizon? Like, what am I really trying to do here to be able to do it? Because if you're trying to just make a little bit of extra income, you're not going to be doing spreads like you are, right? It doesn't make sense. There's an opportunity out there for you. Just like if I were to try to be making income, I wouldn't be buying Palantir, right? So it all just depends on going back to the roots and trying to understand it a little bit. But to me, I think the problem with writing calls or puts is you dictate what your 100% return is. And that's hard for people to really do. So some people will write something that's too close to the money because they get a little bit like they think the risk really isn't there. But on any given week, like, you know, you're only talking about statistics at that point, standard deviations and all that stupid stuff that I didn't do well in college with, but now it makes a little bit more sense. It's like, if you're within a certain amount of standard deviation, like if you're 3 standard deviations away, you're not going to get paid anything. If you're 2 standard deviations away, you get a little bit of income or whatever it is. And so if you're like TJ, he's probably closer to 1 standard deviation away. So he's, you know, looking at things in a little bit different of a scenario than I probably am.
But the other thing is, guys, full disclosure, I can get away with selling cash secure puts on Tesla at 250 because of my ability to roll down and out. And also because of my genetic makeup, because I'm not afraid to put the shares. Like when I want to own Tesla, and I don't necessarily want to own it at 250 because I don't think it's a good deal at 250. At 200, I think it's a pretty decent deal. But I'm okay taking ownership because I also have a 3 to 5 year horizon minimum on anything that I'm wheeling, because I'm playing a game called lowering my adjusted cost basis to 0. So I'm going to sell cost, collect premium, do that over and over again so that I can look up in my fancy little wheel tracker spreadsheet. And eventually it's going to say, hey, I own 1,000 shares of Tesla with other people's money via the cash secured put premium and the covered call premium. And then I can relax and I can get paid the loaf, because the loaf is the capital appreciation, guys. The cash secured puts and the covered calls, those are the crumbs that keep me in business. That's my cash flow. But those are crumbs. But the loaf is going to be in buying Tesla for 200 and selling it for 1,000 in 5 or 6 years. That's where you're going to get wealthy in the stock market. So make no mistake about it. But I live off of my portfolios, right? So I have to make money. That's what I do for a living. So I don't have another source of income. Make $3 a day on YouTube. So that's not going to cut the mustard. You know, so I have to get creative with the way that I do things. And I also take on higher beta stocks as well. You know, like I wheel the Bitcoin miners, and, you know, I yield 40 to 50% returns, cash on cash returns, wheeling the miners. And I've been doing that successfully for 3 years now. And people are like, oh my God, how's the hedge fund getting 33% a year? And I'm like, well, look at the holdings. You know, look at the holdings. You're going to see boring ass AT&T on there. You know, you're going to see stocks that have the ability to double in share price in the next 3 to 5 years, and they're going to pay me at least 30% return, just based on the premiums alone. And I just do it over and over when I stick with the strategy. But what about you? Because I know you sell puts and you sell calls. You're just a lot more conservative, Matt. But what's your goal?
Oh man,
do that? Is it just to bring a little more money through the door?
A little bit more money, yeah. I mean, most of it is on stuff that I would want to own, right? So I wouldn't go out in 2020 and 2021. I mean, I was just making stupid money on stuff that I didn't even want to own. And like sometimes I'd be pulling in an extra 10 to 15 grand a month,
right.
But the market was going haywire, right? It was only going up and to the right. And so it wasn't until 2021 when shit started to go the other way. And I was like, okay, well, luckily for me, I did, and I never did really naked calls very often, but the 1 or 2 times that I did, unfortunately, was on GameStop, and I lost like 50 or 60 grand within a day or two. And so I don't talk about that much, but it's the truth and it's all honesty, and it scares the shit out of me to do naked calls. But I think that that's just a reality of like, I knew enough to be dangerous. I didn't know enough to like mitigate my risk. Right. Because like anybody that was smart probably would have made sure that they didn't write naked calls on something that, the problem with naked calls is they could go technically to infinity. And a company like GameStop really blew me out of the water. So, the way that I kind of look at it now is I look at it more as generally speaking, a 5 delta on the call side. So most of the time when I have something, I don't want to get rid of it. So if I wanted to get rid of it, I would just sell it. And then on the put side, it really just depends on when I think is a good opportunity. Like I would love to buy more SLG, but I'm not going to buy it at $35, right? Because I bought a decent, not too big. It's probably like I guess in terms of standard position sizing for me, it's probably like a quarter position. And, my position sizing generally, if it's something I really like, is 40 to 50 grand generally. So I have like a quarter position size on SLG, but if it goes down to 25, I'd like to pick some up. So every couple months or every couple weeks, I'll look at it. And if I'm up like 50, 60% of my puts, I'll resell. And at first I was selling them at the $20 put range. And like, I think it was like August or something like that when Chris kind of first mentioned it and I liked it. So I bought some. And then it ran up to like the mid 30s. And then obviously that, because it ran up, you were able to buy it back at a pretty good profit. And so now every couple months or every couple weeks, I'll just roll it out another 30, 40 days. So that way I can keep capturing that theta decay.
Right.
And so right now I think I'm sitting on 50, 60% up on my November $25 SLGs. And I'll probably buy those back when we get into October and then roll them to a December. Whenever the Decembers come out, because sometimes SLG is a little thinly traded, so it doesn't always come out. And then SoFi, for example, I sold some, I think it was $20 20 contracts at the 5. It's not a lot of money, right? Because if you get put those, it's like $1,000 or whatever. But it ended up being like a 10% return or something stupid for like a 40, 45 days out. So things like that where you're like, oh, no brainer, I'd buy SoFi at $5 if you're able to get a 10% return. And the nice thing is like you don't actually like, you can get a little bit weird with it too. Like you probably know this because of all the different contracts and stuff you do. Say you have a $2 million portfolio, you don't have to have cash on the side. You can kind of leverage your portfolio size to generate that extra income. So it's like some people might be like, oh, is it cash secured? Or are you using margin? But it's like worst case scenario, you're probably not writing $2 million worth of contracts. But that can get you in a lot of trouble depending on what you're writing it on too. So you have to play some risk management pieces on that. And then not right now, but back when SPY was in the below $400, I was writing in the 350, 360 range for SPY, hoping that we'd get down there. And I would have adjusted the portfolio. So if I really needed to, I would have sold some stuff to be able to get it. I would have probably sold some Pepsi and stuff like that I have in the portfolio that's kind of just sitting there. I wrote some on Dutch Bros that actually turned out to be a good person who bought the puts because it's down to $25, but I'll probably just keep rolling those or maybe I'll let them expire in the money. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I know you're in that with me unless you closed them out already. And then
I know Dutch Bros outright, guys. I bought 200 shares in the small portfolio, the YouTube portfolio, And then in the larger account, I picked up 1,000 shares in the $26 range or so.
Okay.
And I immediately wrote a $30 cover calls 45 days out or so. And those are printing. But I'm still doing a little research on it. I've actually watched like 3 of y'all's videos. So thanks for that. Because I don't like doing due diligence. I like making money. So I'm thankful for the Chris's and Matts of the world and the little SoFi nerds, bro. Shout out to those guys. Because I got 400,000 plus shares of SoFi, and I do zero research on SoFi.
Yeah, the more I think. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm saying I got Tanner. I don't have to do research, bro. Just watch his channel. I'm done.
Yeah, specifically for fintech, he does a good job. I give him a lot of shit because he hates Google, but he does a good job at the end of the day, and he's got his group of folks that really enjoy his content. So kudos to him. But the more I talk about bros, man, the more I like it. I don't know if it's me boxing myself in, but I think that there's a long trajectory there. And the cheaper it gets, like if it gets to the $4 billion range, I think, it's definitely an opportunity in the low 20s for sure. So I'm just going to keep adding to that position. And I also picked up NextEra Energy not too long ago either. But I think that's getting to a point where that's pretty cheap. And they're going to double their renewable output here pretty soon. Right. I think by 2025, 2026. So I don't see that one going away either. But lots of good companies out there, specifically for people that want to buy them at a good price.
You know what? While we're in Vegas, we'll try Dutch Bros. I mean, you had Dutch Bros already. Have you had Dutch Bros, TJ?
Yeah, we actually they're building one a mile from my place right now. Or it's already built out. They're just waiting on opening it. But yeah, I've had it in Harlingen, Texas. Bro, the line is, dude. So here's the thing: the people that do Dutch Bros, it's like they're more cult-like than Starbucks. Like these people, bro. Like it's such a unique atmosphere whenever you go into a Dutch Bros. Even the way you're greeted at the line, dude. It's you ever been to Chick-fil-A? Like if they would have given the COVID vaccine to Chick-fil-A, they could have vaxxed everybody in like 3 hours. Like they're just super efficient. Well, that's kind of what Dutch Bros is becoming. Not so much just on the super efficient side, but just the way they make you feel. Do they make you feel good? They make you feel grateful. Like they have the attitude of gratitude whenever you go there, and they just such an awesome experience. And I think more so because the product's pretty good. I think it's the experience, and that's why they're getting a very loyal following in my humble estimation, guys. So yeah. I'm bullish on it. The only thing I don't like about Dutch Bros or my strategy is the options chain is a little bit weak. The premiums aren't. I mean, volatility is my friend, right? Whenever I sell cash secured puts and cover calls, volatility equals opportunity, because you're going to get the juice is worth the squeeze. So Dutch Bros is more of a glorified long-term buy, hold, and hope strategy. And I'm going to sprinkle in some strategic cash secured puts and cover calls, but it's a share price appreciation play. Not everything is a wheel strategy for me. And guys, I'm a different type of wheeler. I don't just sell puts until I get assigned and then sell cover calls and get the shares to get called away and get back into cash. I sell cash secured puts and cover calls because it helps me to scale into a very large positions, because I know that if you want to get wealthy in the stock market, you don't listen to anything that I've ever said. Listen to this. The only way to get wealthy in the stock market is you need to figure out how to buy something for $1 and sell it for $2, $3, or $4. That's where the big money is. The rest of the shit is a bunch of noise. Block it out. I promise you.
Yeah, it's the same thing, kind of like what you're talking about with respect to volume and open interest. It's like the same reason why people are like, why aren't you holding VOO or IVV? Because the expense ratio is lower. It's like, well, SPY, you could write cover calls on like the dollar ticker or the dollar strike price, right? Versus VOO and IVV, it's like you'll have $2.50 or you'll have $5 between strike prices, and you're fighting to get interest. It's like people are buying VOO or IVV because they just want to hold it and forget about it. Versus SPY, people are moving in and out. The volume on SPY is so huge that you have that opportunity to be able to have that the open interest that you're wanting. So the spreads on the bid and ask are very small comparatively to, say, what you might have on a VOO or IVV. I get that question a lot. And then somebody in the chat also asked about Enphase. I don't dislike Enphase. In fact, I think at this price here, it's pretty cheap. The thing that concerns me, which I don't understand fully yet, is the revenue growth going forward, and how long until we start to truly cut rates for that to kind of kickstart itself back up and to the right. It's had 3 quarters of kind of flat revenue growth, which is unlike what I've seen in the company's kind of history after looking at what Vitale and many others have kind of gone through. And so if you're looking at what the price is today in terms of the income and everything I'd say it's relatively cheap for the long-term potential, especially if you're planning on holding it for if it does say rebound. But the thing that scares me is if rates continue to stay where they're at for, say, the next year or so, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing goes under 100 if the net income continues to dive and the revenue continues to dive. And so that kind of scares me because it really could go either way. And, I think that's just me being a little bit more risk averse. Right. So to me, I think what is true is, from a solar perspective, NextEra is pretty good. And that's where I'll play it. I won't think I'll be able to get the returns as fast as, say, you would with an Enphase. But I think you'll definitely be a lot less risk associated with investing in something like a NextEra for say, the next 10, 15 years.
Right. So I'm pretty bullish on Enphase. I picked up a position. We're scaling into it. We've got 3,200 shares so far, about 136 average cost. And I've got over $1 million in cash secured puts on Enphase right now that are all in the money at 150, 140 bucks, but I'm rolling them down and to the right, being very, very strategic because I don't think that Enphase is cheap. If anything, it's pretty adequately priced right now. I think it was overvalued for a while. Are they going a mile a minute? Yes, they are, but there's some headwinds, guys. There are some headwinds. First and foremost, a lot of people don't understand the math. Like Vitale has a pretty awesome spreadsheet that he created, but he did a lot of math to get to that point. But the average consumer like myself, we're not going to understand that kind of stuff. And the other potential headwind for Enphase is a company like Tesla. If I go buy, like I ordered the Model X Plaid, I go buy the Tesla. If they make some sort of a package deal to where I could go get Tesla solar on the roof or whatever, I think there's a lot of people that want to have everything matching, kind of like I like all my polo, from the cap to the shirt to the shorts to the shoes. I think that people, if they're all Tesla, they're going to be team Tesla, and they might not even care if the technology's as good. They just want it all to match up, and if the price point is going to come in a lot better, that could be a huge headwind for Enphase. As far as the actual microinverters and the technology, I think it's second to none. I don't know the research like the Vitales and the Carloses of the world, but I trust the research. I'm not somebody that researches the research. If the nerds are saying that this is the best, and the technicians are going on their channels and saying, hey, this is the best, then it's the best. So I think it has a nice value proposition, but you have to have probably a realistic time window in my mind is 5 to 10 years to see the investment thesis totally play out. And you have to be willing to endure some pain. I think that there could be, I can see a world where there's a $75 price tag on Enphase. So you have to understand all of that stuff going in. And I'm excited because I'll scoop up a lot more shares. Right now we're at 3,200. I'm saying that we're going to cap the position at 5,000. But if we were to see 75 bucks, that position is going to go to 10,000 because it's an easy triple or quadruple. It's a 4-bagger at those prices, in my opinion. But
yeah.
The other thing though is there's big money out there. Like I don't consider myself big money. We're small players in a very big game right in the stock market. If Tesla goes to like 185 again, then I think all of that money that would have gone to the Enphases of the world, I think Tesla is going to scoop up all of that money. And that's another headwind for Enphase is if more exciting companies get in that kill zone for investors, then there's only so much money that you can allocate. But let's talk about this one right here, man. My chat suckered me into 200 shares of it, and I sold cash secured puts on it and covered calls. And I'm like, what the hell is it? Is it one of those where the rich people want to go to space, or is it something totally different?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get into too much detail, but I'm curious what your chat suckered it into, and when did you?
Outright. I sold covered calls at $5, and then I sold cash secured puts at $4.50. So I bought 200 shares outright, sold the $5 covered calls. I can pull it up on my phone here real quickly. Yeah. I don't know if I'm able to share the screen over there or not, but I can pull it up on my phone here. What did the chat sucker me into, man? They were blowing me up with this damn play, dude. I was like, leave it alone already. So I got 200 shares at 463. So not a big deal. For me, that's like a really, really small position. But it's one that I'm excited about because everybody seems to be real hyped on this company. And then I wrote the $5 covered calls at 10.20. and then I sold the cash secured puts on 1020 at 450. So I'm effectively running a covered strangle on this particular position right now.
Okay.
Offer 1020, but I don't know anything about it. Like, what do they do? Like, somebody said on the chat that they compete with SpaceX. That didn't appeal to me. Like, nobody's gonna beat Elon at anything, bro. All the guy does is win, win, win. That's all he does.
Yeah, I mean, I know Vitali reached out to me, and I know Vince the Bull reached out to me. They both want to talk about Rocket Lab, but I'll kind of give a good synopsis. So, I mean, when you think about SpaceX, they're mostly large launch and mega launch, like mega large launch, right? So Elon's trying to go to Mars, right? These guys, if they go to Mars, it's not to put people on Mars or anything like that. It might be satellites and stuff like that, but these guys are mostly small launch to medium launch size companies that are focusing on things like very small, sort of $4 to $7 million contracts like Black Sky and Capella Space, and maybe some smaller stuff for, say, the Australian space and NASA also in there as well. So it's not like they're not doing it, but they have like 40 odd launches to date, majority of which were successful. The reason why they were down so much today was because they launched successfully, but their secondary, when you kind of split the main primary launch vessel with the secondary launch to go to orbit, we're not 100% sure yet, but we think that the second engine didn't turn on. Versus, the last 40 times it was very successful. They've had a few failures, over the years, but majority of the time they have a pretty good success rate. So when you think about it in terms of total launch, I think they're the second most launched vehicle in the United States. When you think about small launch, competitors like Relativity, Virgin Orbit, Astra, these guys are the only ones that have launched anything in 2023. All those other guys have yet to launch anything in 2023. So that's something to kind of think about. These guys are launching about 15 rockets a year. Last year they launched 12 or 15. This year they're on track to get 15 to 20. I think some of the new stuff that they're doing with suborbital launches as well. And so they're not just a launch company, though. Originally, when I purchased into them, that was kind of my thought process, is you're kind of targeting the small to medium launch sort of business, which is different from, say, a SpaceX. If you compare the Falcon or the Starship comparatively to how large this Electron rocket is, their magnitude's different in terms of size and payload capacity. So this is very much aimed towards the very small sort of companies that want to launch, 5 or less sort of satellites into space. They don't want to pay $40 million and $50 million to do it, right? So these guys also they've gone from a launch company specifically to now their purpose is every time there's a launch into space, they want their logo on it, whether it's they're building satellites themselves. They also have some of the best solar panels that help power, space systems as well. You think about weight is a big concern when you're launching stuff. So having very thin solar panels that are very efficient is the most prudent thing that you can do. They bought a company back in late 2021 or early 2022 called Solero. And these things are 33% efficient and are probably some of the thinnest solar panels in man-made to date. And so that's part of what they're doing today. And so they're growing their space systems business, which is creating customized software / custom satellites, and then coupling that with the launch system. So that's kind of the purpose of the organization, and they're getting close to EBITDA break even, so cash flow break even. From a net income basis. Obviously, they face a lot of what other small launch companies do, share-based compensation and much others, but they're getting to the point now where they still have about 400 or so million in cash. I'm anticipating that they're break even.
How much runway is that for them, Matt? How much money are they burning?
They're burning right now about 30 million a quarter, so about 120-ish a year.
So about 3 years of runway, give or take.
Yeah, the big expenses for them right now, I would say 10 quarters if you're being more conservative, so about 2.5 years to be a little bit more conservative. But their big expense right now is they're developing their medium launch vehicle. And that medium launch vehicle, after that's done, I think a lot of their CapEx is going to go down. And so I think the big things to look at for catalysts, if people are looking at it, and I'll probably get more in touch with it, in a deeper, more extensive time period. But things like relativity, things like Astra, we already saw Virgin Orbit go bankrupt, but relativity and Astra are really running out of cash. And so in the next 2 quarters, I wouldn't be surprised to do a big capital raise or dilute shares by orders of 25 to 30% just to be able to get additional capital, or just call it quits and give up. We already saw an influx of customers after Virgin Orbit went belly up in 1Q, and they actually spent $16 million to acquire some of the facilities and some of the equipment from Virgin Orbit to Rocket Lab. So they basically, I think they got like $25 million worth of stuff for $16 million, and the hope was that you'd be able to have some synergies associated with whatever they did pick up. But the thought process is you're going to have the ability to do that with Astra. You're going to have the ability to do that with Relativity, hopefully, but Relativity might be not as easy considering it's in Alaska. But there's a bunch of different things that I think are catalysts in, say, the next 10 quarters. But I think that it'll probably trade in this range here for the next year or so. So for people that are sitting on the sidelines being like, I don't know, it's a lot of risk still, I get it, right? I think they're going to get closer to profitability by mid-year next year in terms of cash flow break even and getting closer to that, net income break even sort of perspective. And then 2, I think you're going to find out a lot more about the small launch space. So what competitors are still around in a year's time. And I think between now and then, it's going to be pretty volatile. But I thought it was pretty funny. These guys haven't had a failure in quite some time, and they have one failure and the stock goes down 20-something% overnight. And you were able to pick it up at $3.65 or something early this morning. I woke up, I bought it at $4. I think I bought 300 or 400 shares at $4. Sorry.
But where is this? Because you said like if you're bullish, you go to 40, 50,000. Little percentages. Are you like a third of something like that, or is this like a real super small spec player in your portfolio?
Comparatively to the rest of my positions, it's kind of small. I think now I have like 2,200 or 2,500 shares or something like that. So it's still relatively small, but that's mostly based off of the risk of it. If it in a year's time, I might increase the position, double it or triple it, just based off of where that risk is.
And are you selling calls on your shares to just bring in some cash flow, or you're just buying and holding?
No, I mean, if it's spiked up, like I think last year or 2 years ago, it did a spike from like $8 to $22 or something like that. I don't know why. Wow. There wasn't really any news that came out. I sold. That happens a lot to some of my companies, like Palantir. If it went up to $30, I wouldn't sell it. I'd probably just sell covered calls. That's the same thing I did in 2021 when it went up to the $35, $40 a share. I was selling covered calls, and I think I got back like 50 or 60% of my cost basis of my original 1,000 shares just by writing covered calls that year in 2021. Right. So I would probably do the same thing with Rocket Lab. I'd be steady. I wouldn't be selling calls because I think it's one of those companies that could go up 100, 150% very quickly, and you'd be limiting your upside. But it really just depends on what you're looking for, right? I mean, to me, I think that this is one of those companies that could 20, 50x. It could be a $100 billion company and say 15 to 20 years. And so to me, if this company turns out to be good, of course, all companies can go to zero. But my thought process is if I could turn $12 to $20,000 into something that's worth $400,000 to $500,000, I'm willing to take that loss. $20,000 to me, it sounds like a dickish thing to say, but it's not a lot of money when you've been throwing money at a portfolio for the last 10 years, right? So, in bad days that we've seen in 2022, the portfolio was down $30,000, $40,000 sometimes in a day. So when you think about it, I that's the way I kind of position some of these things. It's like it could go to zero, but would I really be missing out on 40 grand? Yeah, it'll suck. Nobody wants to lose $40,000, but of course not. I'm okay with that going to zero versus the potential. Just like Palantir, it's a $60,000 position today. Would it suck if it goes to zero? Yes, but I see that thing potentially being anywhere between worth $300,000 or $600,000 in the next 10 years or 15 years. So that's kind of the way I kind of look at things. Same thing with Amazon. I'm like, I get it, it's $50,000 position, but I could easily see that being worth $100,000 or $150,000 in the next 10 years. So that's kind of the way I kind of look at some of these things and recognize that you have to balance the risk associated with, Palantir is a lot further along on its risk profile than, say, a Rocket Lab. And so therefore it's a third of the size as you would have for, say, a Palantir position in my portfolio.
Well, I've been looking at the options chain. Can you do me a favor and put it on sell and put real quickly and shoot it over to January 2024? So what I'd be comfortable doing, just looking at the options chain, is I'd sell a shitload of cash secure puts at $4 for January 2024, and I would take that premium, other people's money, and I'd buy a bunch of shares at today's prices, and I'd sell covered calls for January of 2024, and I'd sell those at $6. Now, if you put it on sell call at $6, I would strangle the living shit out of that position that way, and I could get paid to buy shares with other people's money, because I don't think those $4 cash secure puts are going to cause me any stress. And if they do, I can always roll those down another year, even take a grip of that premium, buy more shares, sell more covered calls, and I can manufacture a position of probably allocating maybe $25,000 to this position here. Just spitballing napkin math. I think I could easily have about 2,000 shares with other people's money by allocating $25,000 to this position, but only taking ownership of about 2,000, 2,500 shares. So I'm definitely interested in owning some Rocket Labs with other people's money, and the options thing looks sexy enough to do so. So thanks, man. I think you gave me something that I can really sink my teeth into.
Yeah, I think, and then maybe what some people might be looking at is, you might say, oh, 30 cents, it doesn't mean a lot. Multiply by the 100, right? It ends up being, just for 3.5 months worth of work, you're getting a 7.5% return. So say you're able to annualize that, it's a 22.5%. And then coupling that with the cover call side that you're talking about, which is another 30 cents,
right?
Basically you're being able to get about a 15% just within that sort of 3.5 month time period. And like you kind of stated, it's like, then you're just waiting for theta to do its thing, right? Say it stays at the $5 range. You could rewrite those things for a March or an April and keep doing that sort of thing while you're waiting to either accumulate a position over the long term. Now, that all just depends on, if you want to be involved in the stock, right? But anyway.
Yeah.
There's I don't know. I have a little phrase on the channel called manufacturing the win. And as long as the fundamentals check out in the $4 range, I can definitely see a world where I can easily manufacture the win. And what I mean by that is specifically is I can sell enough cash secured puts and covered calls on a company like Rocket Lab to where I can eventually own them for a zero cost basis.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's, mathematically impossible to lose money, right? Once you satisfy your tax obligations on the short-term capital gains on cash secured puts and covered calls. But man, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. You guys have anything else for me? Because the wife is going to start hounding me a little
bit.
Google,
do not miss the opportunity in Google. I'm telling you,
I want you to come on my channel and let's talk about those debit spreads at some point. I'd love to have you on there, Chris.
All I'm gonna just show you guys really quickly. Just share my screen real quick. This is the chart for Microsoft and Google. Okay, hold on one second. I get, like when you get.
I thought you lost your breath. Nah,
I had to sneeze, dude.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
But you can see here that Microsoft and Google have pretty much been tracking each other for a long time. Usually what happens is they'll have like moments where Microsoft takes a little bit of a lead and Google kind of like takes a step back. But this is the first time where I'm seeing finally Google may actually end up not disrupting Microsoft, but basically growing faster than Google. After the introduction of ChatGPT, which happened around here, a lot of people became really bearish on Google. And so there was a lot of pressure to sell Google. And basically because ChatGPT was going to take over and, Google search was dead. And the exact opposite is happening right now. And today was the first time in a year where Google's actual rate of growth is actually starting to surpass Microsoft. And I think that Google will get to Microsoft valuation within the next year and a half to 2 years. So if you just look at like on a monthly basis, this is Microsoft growing literally at 2%, and Alphabet is up around 7. And I think this is actually just the beginning of a giant move up for Google. Their operating metrics are just on another level, man. And Google is just performing like crazy. I cannot just I'll talk to you guys more about it after we end this, because some of the stuff that I want to talk about to you guys is very proprietary. I don't want to let too many people outside of my inner circle people know. So, but I'm telling you, Google, even if you just buy the stock, it's easy $200 a share. Like I don't even know what to tell people, So
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't
the
realize.
Issue that I have, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't think people are taking into account how much cash they have. So even if you just remove the cash aspect from their price to earnings, it's like it even makes it a little bit easier, because you're basically saying, well, you have a 1.5 or 1.6 trillion. And it's like, well, then it goes down to a $1.4 trillion company if you remove the cash only component and how much earnings capability it has or cash flow capability it has. This makes it even that much cheaper. But yeah, I'm pretty bullish on it myself, which is why when it dipped down to the 80s, I pretty much upped my position pretty significantly. And for a while, I almost got pretty scared because I was buying so much Amazon and Google down in the 80s and 90s. I was just like, crap. So I think I got my Google shares down to like 96 or $98, and I like just under. I want to get it to 400 shares. So it's not a lot to you, TJ, but it's a lot to me. But I'd love to get it to 400 shares, but I know I'm going to be kicking myself by saying this, but after that 40% run up, I'm just like, it needs a little bit of a breather. But
no,
I know for
it
a fact
doesn't. I know
it's still so cheap compared to where it should be in 5-10 years. Anyway,
my issue with Google, guys, is I took my entire life savings in 2004 and I bought the IPO, $16,000. So I wasn't rolling, guys. I didn't have a lot of money at all these points in my life, right? Like I was a slow come up story. So if you're struggling, you're trying to figure it out, it's okay to get rich slowly. It'll happen. Just stay the course and have a strategy and implement the strategy. So I cashed it out for $80,000, $81,000. I needed the money for a down payment for a home. And I thought I had won the lotto. I was so excited. It was the best trade of my life at the time, up until that time. And it's just been so hard for me to get into Google ever since, because I haven't forgiven myself for that trade. Like I haven't forgiven myself for being so fucking stupid and short-sighted, because I would have been set at a much earlier age.
So here's the funny thing. Google, if you had bought at that time, like TJ had, and held it, it's up 5,000%.
Bro, why you gotta be bringing up old shit?
50x.
Fucking 50x. 50x.
So it's hard for me, bro. Like
I still remember telling my dad, as a dad, you should buy Google. He's like, what the fuck is Google? Like he thought I was like laughing at him or something, because he had just lost a lot of money in the stock market from like the .com crash. He's like, no, I don't buy internet technology stock. All that stuff is fake. Fuck computers. I was like, come on, Dad. Everyone loves Google. He's like, no, I don't trust this Google business. I was like, okay.
Well, man, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you guys for the channel. I've been watching Cashflow Chronicles, and I've been watching Matt. Shit, man, probably for about a year now, and just keep doing your thing, man. And you're inspiring me, because I've done a shitload of videos and I don't get any views, and then you just keep doing them. But I see that your view count's gotten a lot better, so that just goes to show when you have good content, people will find it.
Yeah, well, it's I don't really do it for the money, and hopefully you don't either, TJ.
Me neither, man. I just want to help people win.
The money's not there. It's about helping people. It's good karma. I think I've been doing YouTube now since 2017, so not everyone's like hot a mid or 10 or being able to churn out as many viewers in a short amount of time. So to me, I'm more about the slow and steady wins the race and helping people as much as I can, and that's what's most important to me. I don't try to hype things up too much, but sometimes I can
There
do
you go.
that.
You got
way.
a $2 super chat from Austin. Thanks,
Yeah,
Austin.
Austin's the man.
Appreciate it.
Next thing you know, I'm going to be like a Mitt, having to
Sing for money.
sing for money, and divvy it up. Chris is going to be calling me. He's like, "Hey, man, when are you going to start giving out those super chats?" But yes, if you guys haven't, be sure to catch out TJ. You do a live stream almost every day now, right?
Yeah, so I have this episode that we started a few months ago called Wheelers, and we have a cash grab segment that's really catching fire, where I literally give my panelists 10,000 of my dollars, and they're able to do a trade. And we have this wheel tracker, and 25% of the winnings I buy Bitcoin, and I'm going to give half of a Bitcoin to my wrenchers, right? I have the wrench squad. So if they're mods on the channel, they get a wrench.
Oh, wow.
And they're going to get half of a Bitcoin collectively between like 40 or 50 people.
$20 from Mr. Manager.
Yeah,
He's one of your guys.
Yeah, he's
Mr. Manager.
One of my guys, man. He's legit. He's on my. He knows how to short the market, bro. That is one thing that I'm just I just don't have the courage to do, to be honest with you. But anyway, I'm going to give half of Bitcoin away to my rent squad, and we're going to rent a yacht in Miami. It's going to be a fun experience. And nice. It'll be cool. But that's what I'm about, man. I just want to help other people win. It's an old Zig Ziglar thing. I sell vacuum cleaners, so they used to make us watch Zig Ziglar when I was knocking on doors in college. But it was like, if you help enough people get what they want in life, you'll automatically get what you want out of it. Yeah. And that's just been my mission from a very young age, guys.
If everyone could hit, if everyone who has it, can you guys please hit the like and the subscribe button for Matt? Let's grow this channel. Let's grow Cashflow Chronicles. You know. So,
Mr. Manager, thank you again for the $20. I think that might be one of the biggest on the channel, if not the biggest thus far. And make sure you guys take the opportunity to look at Hot Chris's Patreon as well. And Chris, I'm trying to remember if I had anything. I didn't end up doing Ferrari last week because I ended up getting cold feet and I was just so tired on Thursday. I didn't end up doing a Cashflow Chronicles episode. Plus, I missed you so much. So it might have been a little bit of homesickness, but we have Ferrari people asked for us to look at Ferrari. So we could do that tomorrow, or we could do whatever is relevant. I guess we also have the FOMC. So we'll probably have a little bit of discussion about that as well tomorrow.
Yep.
Well, TJ, it was a pleasure having you on, man. Hopefully have you on soon again.
For sure, man.
Make a damn Twitter so we can reach out to you. And tag you
make a Twitter, TJ. Come on, man.
You got to talk Everyone wants to reach out. People were DMing me and she wasn't about it, but I'd like to invite you guys on an episode of Wheelers one day. That would be awesome, and I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Especially on a Friday. I work from home on Fridays, so I can
Beautiful,
easily make
man. Well, I'll reach out to you. I'll get your information from Chris, because Chris and I text all the time, and my wife's like, "Who's this Chris person?"
Chris is the crazy dude,
the Daisy God, man.
Just stay on real quick, TJ and Matt. If you want to end the live, take care, everyone. Have a good one.
Take care, everybody.